Welcome back to the Bold of the Most podcast. I'm your host, Trae Jacobs, and today I'm joined by Robert Johnson. Mr. Johnson, what's good, my man? How you doing?
Hey, man. How you doing? I'm good. I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on here.
Yeah, for sure, bro. Located in the Pacific Northwest in Oregon, right?
Yeah, Portland, Oregon. Keeping it weird.
Is that your slogan?
Yeah. That's a Portland thing.
Austin is like something about being weird too. So
yeah.
Is Portlandia, is that a real thing? Is that how you guys get down?
It's not how I get down all the way, but I think a lot of people, it's pretty spot on.
Yeah. Have you lived out there your whole life?
Yeah, I grew up here actually.
No way. What? Yeah. In Portland?
Yeah, not like in the metro, but like suburbs outside. Yeah.
Yeah. Have you ever heard of Forest Grove?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. That was actually the first place I went to high school, Forest Grove, Oregon.
Oh,
it's
weird.
Like the last bus stop outside of Portland. It's a small town, so pretty.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah. And you currently have a W-2. Where were you working?
Yeah, so I work at in my W-2 I work at New Seasons Market. So it's a natural grocery store in here in the Northwest, mostly Portland area. We ventured out for a little bit and then came back, and we pulled it back into Portland because that's where we're strongest.
Yeah. What do you do?
So I'm a category manager. I buy for the refrigerated grocery products. So like the cheese, eggs, milk, all the commodity type of items and bread.
That's interesting. What does a typical day in the life look like? That type of job. I'm super curious, actually.
Yeah. I mean, it can vary, but the big role for us is really the product selection and the promotional planning. So we do a lot of work around what products we put on the shelf, when they go on sale, and what their price strategy should be and things like that. And then we do a lot of forecasting. So there's a lot of spreadsheet work, and then a lot of meetings that with the brokers who are the people that represent the brands that go on the shelf.
Oh man, that's super interesting. No wonder you love spreadsheets and ClickUp so much. It all makes sense now, man. It definitely does. Man. So what got you into real estate?
Wow. Like I've always wanted to do something with real estate. I knew a few years ago, like even when we were first looking for our first house, my wife and I were looking, and I was, in my back of my mind, I was like, we should do something where we house hack. And I didn't really know the term house hack at the time. It was just like, we should get a duplex and have somebody else on the other side, and then rent, live in it for a couple of years and then move up and scale and things like that. And I made a lot of mistakes that I think a lot of people do at that point when they're just getting into real estate or looking for their home and things like that. Like I didn't really look at it from an investor lens, and we just waited. And so, we thought at the time, like interest rates were high or the prices were too high, and we couldn't get our finances in a place where we could get the house that we wanted. And so I waited, and then like we missed our opportunity. We just stayed in apartments for a long time. And then finally in 2020 during COVID, we've got our first home, and it wasn't the duplex house hack. It was more of like, this could be our forever home. So, going through that was really just kind of eye-opening. Like, and now I look back and think about it from the investor lens, like, why wait? You need to take action now. The market now is, it's going to go up and down, but you shouldn't wait to get into real estate.
Yeah, I mean, you bought your house at the perfect time. I mean, I bought my house in 2020 as well. And this thing in 3 years has almost doubled in worth. It's absolutely crazy. And once these interest rates start dropping, it's just going to keep going up. So,
yeah, man.
What is the saying? You don't wait to buy real estate. You buy real estate and wait.
That's it.
There you go. There you go.
Live by that.
Yeah. So 2020, you bought your house. Is that when you first decided to start wearing the investor hat?
No, actually, I kind of, I lived in it was COVID time. It was really kind of odd, working from home and things like that. It was really nice, but I got a little comfortable with everything,
Mhm.
like I think a lot of people did. And it wasn't until 2022. So 2020, 2021, I was really comfortable. We had, I had my job that had money I've made in my career, and I had a house. My family and I were just, we were enjoying ourselves, but I wasn't really like in that mindset of growth and how do I step up and do something different. And in 2022, that's when I kind of first had my eyes open up to like more of the real estate in investing it in that perspective.
Yeah. What opened your eyes?
A man named Tyler Devereaux.
Yeah. Were you just like randomly scrolling through Facebook one day and then boom, there's an ad. And
You
then a
know
couple
it,
days
dude.
later, there's 5 more ads. And you're like, maybe I should try this out.
Yeah. Yeah. I think
Yeah.
you and a lot of others in our community have that same experience. But,
Yeah.
even before I saw that ad, I did in my mind, I started like looking at how can I buy investment properties? And it wasn't in the multifamily space. It was really just like, how can I get a little bit of passive income, like $250, $300 a month, and just buy a property and then not necessarily do the burr strategy, like, but really just how do you then take the equity, go into the next one, things like that. Not full burr, but
Yeah.
being able to use equity to leverage into more properties.
I feel like the strategies have changed so much from 2022 to now, right? Like I'm literally trying to figure out how to, because the multifamily space is great. I definitely want to buy larger apartment buildings, but with the market the way that it is and the interest rates the way they are, it's pretty hard to get these deals to pencil. So finding like a smaller multifamily deal and then taking that on maybe with a partner or two, but it's just like the strategies, like the burr, is that even a thing anymore?
Not as much, no, because when the interest rate goes up like that, refinancing doesn't necessarily make as much sense.
Right.
It will definitely come back again. It's the ebb and flow of the real estate market going up and down. But with those
Yeah.
interest rates, that will kind of dictate which strategies you really want to focus on during that time.
Yeah. So you decided, all right, 2022, I'm going to change the game. I'm stepping into commercial real estate. How has your journey been from then until now?
Uh, it's been really really fun and good for me. Like beyond just real estate, it's been really good for me as a person and changing my uh my whole being essentially. Like I'm a different person than I was just a couple years ago, and it's also challenging, but that challenge has been what's pushed me to grow into this different person. And I love it. We've maybe not been as successful in some areas of the business where I would have hoped that we would have been.
Right.
But at the same time, like I said, it's me changing as a person has been a bigger impact in my life and my family's life than just the real estate alone.
Yeah, I hear that, right? Like I look back on who I was when I started and who I am today, and it's almost like I'm a completely different person, right? I'm so much more hungry. I can see, I don't want to say the finish line, right? But I can see what's ahead of me. I can almost grab it, and I'm working, like stretching to get to, where I know I'm supposed to be in life. So, um, I hear you 100% on that one.
Yeah, man. It's it's a grind. Like
It is. It is. But you know what? It's fun, right? Like, I mean, you reference challenges, right? What are some of the challenges that you've faced in your journey so far?
well, it's varied. Sometimes it's business alone, and then sometimes it's the life, the family balance. And for example, I think it was last year in July, we opened a new store at my W-2. That's a lot of work going on from my W-2 side. But right after opening, it was that weekend after opening, I went to play some basketball, and I like just wrecked my ankle so bad. And it put me out like on the couch and, not moving around much and things like that for a while. And it's still not even really like totally healed, um, but at that same time, we also got an option and an opportunity to work with some of the multifamily partners that we know to work on a deal with them. And so during that time, I'm sitting on the couch trying to, like figure out how do we put together a presentation this way, a specific way for these investors that we're looking to help bring into this opportunity. And, it's trying to learn as you go. Taking imperfect action is great, but that's just a challenge. Like that was something that we had to overcome. And then at the same time, the folks that brought us into it, this was their first time bringing other like outside people in to help with them with the deal. So they're going through their own sets of challenges. They're figuring out, what does this look like to have people come in on the backside of the portal? And we were going through that daily, like, oh, we can't get access to this, or this has to, like all these little things that would come up, and that stuff's going to happen. But that's just like an example of where a little bit of the family side and the work side kind of collided together.
Right. Two things. One, I did not know you were a baller. What do they call you on the basketball court?
Dude, that was, I used to play basketball a lot in middle school, and then I shifted and I went to more skater guy. So I like elementary and middle school were basketball all the way. And then I went and started skating and playing guitar, and in like 7th grade. And me going out to play basketball was just me trying to get a little bit back into it and getting active, because I put on those COVID pounds like I was,
Yeah, same, bro. Same. Man, you out there just let it rain, you know?
Yeah. Raindrop. Yeah. Dude, when that game that I wrecked my ankle on, I just went out, I was shooting hoops, and then there's a bunch of guys that come up and they're like, hey, you want to jump in? I'm like, yeah, sure, and they partner me up against the guy. They're like, okay, you cover him. And then as I'm looking over, he just goes and dunks. And I'm like, what the what? You guys are putting the almost 40-year-old guy on this 20-year-old that's dunking on me?
Yeah. Did he cross you up and break your ankles, or was it just
no, man? I was taking it to the hole, man. And I just came down at a weird angle, and I was a big guy and had a lot of pressure going the wrong way.
Oh, man, it's the worst, bro. I've been there. I was a basketball player too, so we've never met. Nice. I'm 6'5", so
Oh, jeez, yeah.
I was the guy that was dunking that you had to guard.
Oh shit.
Oh man. Okay, so we recently had a conversation about the sub 2 and the wholesaling and how that worked, which is super helpful. Thank you for that. But
yeah, of course.
With that sub 2 wholesale, that whole arena, what drew you in there?
Oh man. Yeah. So, we talked about it in our last call, but Pace Morby, he's another one like Tyler Devereaux. You see him once, and then all of a sudden you see him 5 times a day or multiple, more than that.
So many times. Oh my gosh.
Funny thing is that after our last call, we had this chat going between us, and I opened up Facebook, and I send you a screenshot of Pace Morby's ad, right? Like the first thing I see is Pace Morby, and then you send one right back, right? Like
right. They're flooding the market.
Yeah. So Pace Morby ultimately is what drew me into that. But really, I was last October, my partner Jeff and I were at a multifamily event in Orlando where Pace actually spoke, and he was speaking not just about subject to, but just creative finance in general, and how he was starting to use it in the multifamily space. And that just really kind of was like the start of opening our eyes up to these other options out there, because we really went into this multifamily perspective of syndication. And there's obviously more ways to do a big project like that, but seeing him talk about it and giving the explanation of how it would work and why people would do it, that was really awesome to see, and like just kind of opened my eyes. And then we didn't really do anything with it at that point. It was probably 4 or 5 months went by, and I kept seeing more and more of him. And then finally I saw this one clip. I don't remember exactly what it was now, but I was like, okay, I'm going to call their team and see what this is all about. And then I talked to my partner, and we talked about how do we layer this into the multifamily long-term goal. And so that's really what we discussed and talked about it. And finally, we just pulled the trigger and we joined his community to where we can learn these strategies that can be applied in really anything. Like I could go buy a car subject to, or sell somebody my guitar on seller finance if I wanted to, whatever it is. Like there's so many outlets for this creative finance skills. And so,
yeah. So when you're at this event, I'm real curious, like high level, I know you're not going to be able to, recreate his keynote, right? But how did it work buying a multifamily property sub 2?
Yeah. So he actually talked about he explained how subject to worked, but his example in that particular situation was actually about seller finance. And the reason why he was able to pick up, I think it was like a 30 some odd unit apartment building on a 70-year term, which
on a 70-year term.
Yeah, you heard that right.
Yeah, that would have caught my attention too. Sheesh.
Yeah. So, and this goes back to some of our previous conversation, is that you really have to find what that person is needing. Do they need security, that they have a steady check coming in? Do they need that upfront money? And it really comes down to what they're needing. So he happened to work with this person who was an older gentleman, and he had family that what they did was they worked around to make a trust where the seller financing check was over 70 years. And it's a fairly big property. So you're still getting a good chunk of money every month, even over 70 years. He was already 70 years old, or, somewhere around there, where he's never going to enjoy that money himself for that duration. But the reason he did it was that he put it in that trust. The kids now have access, and the grandkids have access to that monthly income that is now just there for them.
Right.
And at the same time, it helps Pace and his team come in, be able to invest into the property, and still cash flow enough to offset their investments on a quicker timeline.
Right. That makes sense. I you know what? I do want to kind of rehash some of the conversation that we had, because you explained sub 2 so eloquently that I think I'd be doing the listeners a disservice by not, asking you those same questions. So
sure,
bear with me here. But from the top, right? Sub 2. What is sub 2?
Yeah. So subject to is you take over the deed of a property by taking over the payments on the existing loan. So the official term that's used in the HUD statement, I believe, is this property is being purchased subject to existing financing. So the way you can take a look at it is that if you own that home that you have right now, you bought it a couple years ago, say you didn't have a lot of equity for whatever reason, like the market didn't appreciate and you didn't have a lot of equity, whatever that may be. Mm-hmm. And now you have to move for whatever reason, if that's a job relocation, or you lost your job and you need to downsize, whatever it is, we can come out as a buyer and buy the property subject to your existing financing. So you bought it a few years ago. I'm sure you got a killer interest rate. And right now interest rates are in the 7. So the difference is huge, to where if I were to go get a traditional loan right now, that payment is going to be astronomical on the property value.
Right.
So what we do is there's special paperwork and process that you go through, but we can then take over whatever existing financing you have in place and just make the payments that you already are making, which is at that 3% probably, right? Like high 2 to low 3.
Right. So what you said the deed, right? What happens with the title?
Yeah, so that's a funny thing. So the title is just, it's a little weird. So like when you think of a house and a car, so the car actually has a title, which is like the piece of paper that says you own this piece of property, whatever it is, the car.
Right.
The deed is like the title for the car, but title in real estate is not the deed technically. So title is like you go through the title company, and they go through, and you go through the closing process with escrow and things like that. And it's not actually taking title to a house. It's the deed is essentially, it's kind of interchangeable with, like when you think about a car title and a property deed is kind of the same thing.
Oh yeah, I did not know that. I mean, honestly, when I
I
bought my
didn't either.
house, I signed like 400 papers, so it
Yeah.
probably said it somewhere in there.
Right.
So that's super helpful. Cool. All right,
Yeah.
so you find, all right, well, actually, how do you find the people who are in these situations where they need to get out of their house?
Yeah. So, I mean, there's lots of ways to do it. For our team right now, we're focused on properties that are listed on the market. And we use a program, it's called PropStream. So it gets all the public data and shares all of that information that really gives us the clear view of what kind of situation that person may be in. So we just filter the criteria. If we just went to a county and looked at all the on-market properties, it's going to be in the hundreds of thousands probably. Especially, you know, if you're in a large county, you're going to find thousands and thousands of properties. So we filter that down by the criteria. The interest rate, we try to stay under 5%. And we look for properties that were purchased within 2 to 3 years because of that low equity piece of it. And that's really what drives the subject to is finding somebody that has low equity. So there's typically 4 pillars to why, like the information that we want to get and why we would want to find that information out when we're approaching a person about buying. So there's the pain or the motivation, you know, what kind of pain are they in? And that's the motivation really is like, are they doing the job relocation? Did they lose their job? Or are they relocating due to military or, you know, whatever that is. And then there's the timeline. So you know, what time, like when do they need to move? And then there's the price. And so all of that is actually in a direct to agent model. It's already laid out. Like, you know, that they need to move. Like you need to, they're on the market. So they want to sell, you know, the timeline, like they want to sell as soon as they can. Otherwise they wouldn't be on the market. And then you just need to figure out what is their motivation? Like why are they even wanting to sell? And that's where it really comes down to.
Right.
And
so
that's what we talked about last time.
All 4 of those are basically identifying the problem and then coming up with a solution for that problem.
Right.
Essentially. Right. So you guys are just big time problem solvers, and the problem is the biggest purchase of somebody's life. So how do those conversations go, right? Like if somebody is if they're in hot water and then you come a knocking, right? How are you handling somebody in probably one of the toughest times of their life?
Yeah, so there's 2 things here. So with the direct to agent model, those conversations are very different because you have that filter now. You have somebody that's in the industry. They understand at least a base level of what's going on the seller side and what we're doing as far as approaching for purchasing the home.
Right.
So that conversation is a little bit different than a direct to seller. Like I think where you're probably thinking, if I were to go and talk to a seller, that conversation is going to be way different.
Yeah.
And a lot more challenging. So we kind of talked about it a little bit last time, is that those conversations they're not easy. And the people are going through their own levels of, you know, potentially if they're going through like a pre-foreclosure, they're going through their own levels and stages of grief. And, you know, they're having their own situation that they're working through mentally, and like what stage are they in? You have to help them identify that. And, you know, I think we talked about it last time. I tried and getting into that pre-foreclosure, I was door knocking for a little bit, but I realized really quick, I'm not equipped to handle this situation. And I stepped away because it is a lot. It's a lot to put on somebody's shoulder. And I don't want to mess somebody's chances up of being able to get out of that pre-foreclosure because I didn't know what I was doing. So,
yeah,
you know.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, man. I can only imagine. Oh. So with the agent route, are you still having to pay commissions?
Yeah, so we offer commissions, and depending on what's going on, it ranges from 2.5% to potentially 5%. You know, sometimes we actually offer 5% as a being both the buyer and the seller agent for us. So in some states they can dual representation. They can do dual representation, so they're representing the seller already, and we can go in and say, hey, you know, we're unrepresented. If you can help us out, we'll pay, you know, up to 5% for you to cover both sides. And that's kind of like a strategy to help gain the confidence and the trust in an agent, because their
Yeah, that
biggest
makes sense.
motivator is cash.
Right,
You know,
right.
they do have a fiduciary responsibility, and a lot of people are really good with that. But at the end of the day, they want to make sure that that deal gets done and that they get paid. And that's, if that's the cherry on top, then, you know, it kind of helps just build that relationship off on a good foot.
So are you guys coming out of pocket with those commissions?
So we, in the wholesale part of it, depends on where we go with it. So when we are wholesaling, we'll take all those fees. So if there's any cash that goes to the seller, if there's any liens on the property or back payments, things like that, and then the agent commission. So all of those would get looped into what we call the entry fees. And so those entry fees are paid by whoever's buying the property from us, the wholesaler. So we build it up into our underwriting where, you know, we go and get it under contract. We have all this information that we say, okay, it's going to take this much to get into this deal. And then we go and market it to an end buyer that's going to be the person that renovates it and flips it, or renovates it and rents it, whatever it may be. And they pay for all of that. And whether they pay for it with their own cash or they use private money lenders, you know, that can vary as well.
Right, right. So what type of documentation is needed when you're doing a deal subject to?
You do go through closing and escrow the same that you would with a standard purchase. There's just a couple different specific um, contracts that you would need. And so within the sub 2 community, PACE has all of those available. And, you know, we definitely use those because they have so much protection that for both sides that have been built in over the years through his own issues that he's run into.
Yeah.
And really, it's just like the main one is a subject to addendum. So it can be tacked on to a existing contract to purchase the home. And the addendum just says that, you know, hey, instead of going to get that traditional financing, we're going to do this purchase as a subject to.
So last question on subject to, and then we'll kind of move on. But
yeah,
why would somebody be okay with just transferring their mortgage to you or to anybody in the subject to community? Isn't that still tied to their name?
Yeah, it is. And that's where it comes down to, you need to find the right person that has that need to. Like, we're not in the business of trying to sell this to anybody. It doesn't fit for everybody, and we know that. So we've really focused on going through the numbers. So, you know, like I said, there's thousands of listings, and then when we get down to it, say there's 500 in a week that we're looking at. Our job is to just go through and sift through and connect with these agents and see, is their seller in a situation that really could benefit from subject to? If it is, then let's have a further conversation. And if it's not, then, you know, we try to build that, maintain that agent relationship, but we also understand that that doesn't work for every seller, and we move on from that lead.
Yeah. So Pace he seems really cool, and I've heard nothing but good things about him. But he is flooding the market right now with his ads. Do you think that there's potentially going to be an oversaturation of people looking to do subject to deals in the near future?
I think, you know, there's definitely times that we call in if it's a popular market. We've put out offers and things like that where the agent comes up and says, this is the 4th one I've seen, or this is the 8th one I've seen. So it's definitely happening. But again, it comes down to that timing. Like, when do you reach out to that agent, and, you know, can you build a relationship with them? So that's, I mean, how you separate yourself is building those relationships with agents on maybe not even closing a deal, but like just putting your best foot forward and showing that you're capable of doing this and providing resources so that in the potential future, you're going to be the one that they call, you know?
Right.
So if they come across this again, like, oh yeah, I just, you know, a couple months ago, this didn't work out for that seller, but this person might actually be a good fit for this. And so a little bit of it is a long game, and that's how you separate. And that's what we're working on now, is just building those good relationships with agents and providing good resources. And I think overall, to answer your question, like, yes, there will get to a point where, like, in some markets, there's for sure going to be some oversaturation, like Arizona and in like the Phoenix area.
Mm-hmm.
That's where, I mean, Pace lives there. That's where like a ton of people live, and they are like in the subject to community. Like they're doing it every day, and they're in that market. People are still getting deals. So it, you know, just comes down to, again, like, how do you separate yourself from the others and build those good relationships?
So, you know, outside of money, is there anything else, well, outside of money and relationships, right? Like, what else does it take to be successful in real estate, both subject to as well as multifamily?
Yeah, I would say probably the big thing for me would be consistency. Being able to go in, you know, day in and day out and be consistent with the work that you're doing when you sometimes don't see that result right away. So, you know, being into it for a year or a year and a half, and you're not seeing exactly the result you want, but you continue to put that work in. And as long as you're directing it to the right path, that, you know, sometimes that could be an issue, is that maybe you're putting all the work in, but it's in the wrong direction. But as long as you can figure out that you're on the right path, you continue on with it and put in that work. And the other thing you already talked about it, but the relationship, like building your network. So those two together are really key, I think. If you can have consistency, but you don't have a relationship or a network that you can partner with, and they don't see that you're being consistent, then you're going to have a harder time. But if you have the network and they see you, but you're not being consistent, and they see that you're just kind of in and out here and there, that's not going to work either.
Yeah, I hear that. I mean, that's exactly like this podcast, right? I'm launching every week, right? At least until I get to 20 episodes, and then posting very consistently. I started a new Instagram just to do real estate and podcast interviews, because eventually I want my brand to change from that guy that, you know, people know as, you know, an ex-basketball player who is in Dallas to, oh, that's Trae. He's doing, you know, multifamily. He's doing real estate, right? If you have money, you should hit him up because he can 2X it, or whatever that is, right? Like completely changing the branding, personal branding, right? And it does, and it's hard too, right? And I'm sure you recognize this as well. But putting yourself out there to, you know, a smaller audience, or not getting the reaction that, you know, maybe sometimes you're looking for, it's tough. Like the consistency part is freaking hard, right? Man, I try not to look at the numbers, right? But, you know, numbers are low right now. So,
sure.
But you know what? I'm not going to stop. That's we've committed, and we're going all in. So
that's what I love about you, man. And that's what I've really enjoyed seeing you in the last couple of weeks, really stand this whole podcast up. And, you know, I reached out to you when I started seeing the information, because this is where I kind of fell off too, is that I had podcast on my list months ago, and I started to dabble with it, but I didn't commit. And I just really appreciate the fact that you went from like, you're 2.5, 3 weeks into this process, and you've already got 4 episodes out, I think. Yeah. And so just killed it, dude.
Let's hear it. All right. First off, what's the podcast called? And second, when is your first episode going to be released?
Oh man, you're putting me on the
spot. Let's go.
All right. So as far as the when, my goal is, I have this is my own my own fault. I haven't put it on paper yet. This is like one of the biggest things, like one of the easiest things you can do is just like put your goal on paper. Like I've got it in my mind. I'm doing the process of setting it up, but I didn't put an actual like date on there.
Well, we're doing that right now, right? Say it and then
pull up the calendar here. Today's Thursday the 7th. I'm going to say first episode's going to land on Monday the 18th.
What's the podcast called?
I don't know if I want to. I gotta do it right now?
Okay.
Keep it a teaser.
What's give me a teaser. Give me your 15-second what the podcast is about. How about
that? Basically my goal is to connect with as many people who are kind of following the same path that I'm on in the high level where, you know, it might not be a W-2, but they're working for the man in some way or another. It's a contract job, whatever. They're getting a paycheck from somebody else's business. And I want to help follow and pull and extrapolate all the information of what they're doing right now to improve their situation monetarily with passive streams of income. And it could be active streams too, side hustles, things like that. But really just like, how are they putting the work in and making sure that they're getting the goals that they're accomplishing the goals that they want to through this side venture of whatever it may be.
Oh yeah, bro. Hell yeah. And I actually think this episode is going to launch on the 18th. So if you're listening, find Robert Johnson on Instagram. I'm sure he'll be posting about his new podcast and tune in because, I mean, that's very relatable and exciting content. So with that, bro, like how are you rebranding yourself?
Yeah, so for me, it's been a challenge trying to figure out how much, like especially early on, with the W-2 and things like that. I was really concerned about the thoughts of everybody around me in my work, but also just family and friends and things like that. I had too much self-doubt in that regard that like I was putting out content on, like I made my own like separate LinkedIn account that was real estate focused, but
oh really?
And then I realized, you know, personal brand is much more important. And as I started talking more a little bit about what I was doing to some of my coworkers and family and friends and things like that, I started to understand the value of really getting that message out. So yeah, so I sunsetted the real estate LinkedIn and I really just focused on the personal, and I started putting it out there what I was doing. And now it's not necessarily a complete rebrand, because I think that my network of people that I work with especially on LinkedIn is so powerful. I know a lot of people in a position that would probably benefit from investing in real estate, whether they do or not right now. I don't know. You know, there's definitely a few people that have reached out, and some people are actually that I worked with. And once I started talking about it, they're doing syndication and they have their own firm and things like that. So some really, like just putting it out there is so cool and valuable. And I didn't really realize it at the time, but
I haven't moved into LinkedIn yet. It's one of those, it's a platform that just scares the shit out of me and it sucks. But you know what? What am I doing? I'm sharpening my blade on Instagram, and I'll eventually start trickling more content into Facebook because I have a huge network there, as well as LinkedIn. As I have, you know, I'm in the tech space, so there's a lot of money out there in the tech space. So I got to do it. I will do it. I will. Absolutely. Yeah. I just am a little rough around the edges right now. And I need to clean it up a bit.
Yeah. You know, and honestly, that's where I kind of thought I was too. And so I got very intentional on making sure that when I was posting on LinkedIn, I had a good balance of, I would add value in my W-2 side so that people would see that, you know, this is a guy that is doing well and helping others in that category management space, or in the CPG industry, which is consumer packaged goods. And then also I would sprinkle in the real estate and what I was doing. And then I would really that you got to throw in a little bit of personal things, like some of my struggles. And, you know, I went for a long time without posting anything. And then I just took that step one day. I was like, man, I haven't posted on here for so long. And but good things are coming. That, I'm working on stuff in the background, and you'd be surprised. Like, just LinkedIn is really so powerful with how many people you can reach. I had a post that it was about my W-2, but it reached like 30,000 views, and
Wow.
I was impressed by that. And like, then you can see the insights, like, what areas of the country they're in, what kind of positions they're in, and things like that when you get those posts over a certain amount. And so,
Oh yeah, bro. You went viral on LinkedIn. That's crazy.
Right?
Congratulations.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know that I really answered your question yet, but I was getting there and a little slow to it. But the personal rebranding is, I'm not the same person I used to be. I am not only in real estate, but I want to help people grow. And that's where the podcast will really be a pillar of that. How do I help people understand that there are more ways to do this? And, whether it's real estate or not, there's more out there, and try to help people get into a growth mindset of, that capability of just stepping outside of their comfort zone. And I'm definitely stepping outside of my comfort zone doing this.
Yeah. Getting comfortable in the uncomfortable, which happens, right? Like, we're both right in the thick of it right now, but
right.
It is getting easier, right? Every time I hit publish, it definitely gets easier.
Well, that's good to hear.
Yeah, it is. It really is. It really is. The editing process kind of stinks a little bit because I'm doing that all myself. But you know what?
Right.
At the end of the day, I'm putting in the work. Got to put in the work.
Yeah.
So with this personal rebrand, or kind of exposing more of your personal brand, what struggles have you faced so far?
Honestly, the biggest one has been, there's probably two. One is consistency. And the other is like just getting in my own head, the doubt of what people will get from this. And is it going to be valuable? Are people going to like this content? Or are they going to get something from it that will help them? And that's where that drives the inconsistency. That I think that is a big part of it for me, is that once I get over that hump completely, I have good days and I have bad days. And, when I like do this, and when we had that call, last week or week and a half ago, whatever it was, we got a lot of good content out of there, and I was posting and I felt really good about it. And then, you psych yourself out, you get in your head and you start thinking, is this, like I said, is this the right information going out, or what are people going to think? And you start doubting yourself and what information you're putting out. And I mean, that's the number one thing. And that leads to the inconsistency.
Right. I find myself there a lot. I'm focusing primarily on Instagram, but I'm not missing a day, right? My goal is to post, I think, I can't remember if it was 30 or 90 days, right? But I have a goal written down somewhere where I'm consistently posting Monday through Saturday, and Sundays when I have time, right? I try to keep one day where I don't have to do too much. But same thing, right? Like, you post something and you're like, wow, this is a banger, right? But your following is slow. You're not seeing the growth that you would have expected, and people that, that definitely support you, you see in the analytics that they're not interacting or engaging with your content. And you're just like, oh man, was this a miss? And all that to say, right? Like, the easiest way to support somebody's business is interacting with their content. Number one, like the content, right? It costs you nothing. But it means the world to whoever's creating it. Number two, comment on it, right? Like, if you are scrolling by and you see somebody who put something out, give it some love, drop a comment, because that interaction, that engagement helps the creator out so much. And then, there's some other ways, right? Like, if it's good content, share it, reshare it, because no matter what social media that you're working with, they love to see that you're sharing somebody's content. And the biggest thing, right? Like, if you can stick around, like, this isn't free because time is money, but if you can stick around and watch their whole video, if it's a 60-second short, watch that whole reel, right? Because Instagram's going to see that, it's going to log that, and it's going to be like, this is good content because this user stuck around for the whole time. Those are all absolutely free ways to help your friends grow their business and their reach. So, for me personally, if I come across your content, almost every time I hope almost every time I'm liking it or reacting to it or doing something, right?
I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah. There's like a handful of us. I think Jess Summers, every time I post something, she's right there, and I love her for that. So when she posts something that maybe isn't business related, well, dropping a heart,
right?
Because it's going to help elevate her other content, because I want to see her succeed.
Right.
I wish more people understood that, because we're in all these networks and they're like families, and we got to support each other somehow. So
it's funny, man. I've gotten to the point now where if it's somebody I know, like, if I'm watching a Pace video or, Tyler or whatever, or you or Brandy, like my wife will be sitting there right next to me, and not necessarily recently, because she gets it now, but like I'll be get to this video, and like within 2 seconds I like it, and she's like, you didn't even watch it yet. And I'm like, that doesn't matter. Like this person, that person, like I know the content's good, I'm gonna enjoy and I'm gonna watch the whole thing, and getting to that like is so important, like you said, and that makes a huge difference for any content creator, really.
Yeah. So if you ever post something and you're like, man, did this bomb and I didn't like it yet, I want you to shoot me a text message, call me, FaceTime me, shoot me a DM. You like Facebook Messenger, drop in there, I'll get it, and I will go interact with whatever you post, because that's how much I want to see you succeed.
Thank you.
I think we all need to,
way.
We got to have that mentality, right? Like, 'cause this is a tough industry, and we're all just starting out at different various levels, right? But to get to that next level, we got to support each other. And I just, I know Brandy and Jess Summers, they're great people. Bright Peak Capital, like every time, I love them for that, like so much. You have no idea. Okay, so with the social media, right? Like, what social strategies have you seen a lot of success with?
Yeah, so actually probably the most that I've actually seen like the best interactions with, and even just like personal comments, people reaching out to me even, has been time lapse. So really? And this goes back to the consistency thing. So I think it was back in like maybe late September or October, where I was posting a video every day that, like a time-lapse video of me either working in the office, or I was writing down in my journal, or just like a generic background if I didn't get that video clip. But like I would just post with how I was going to win the day. And I would, at the time, I was really on a running kick. So it was like, okay, I wake up early, I get my run in, I do my journal, and then I work on this, and this throughout the day. And then I get family time and like get to bed on time, things like that. And like, I would just post that, what's going on in my day, like what I'm working on, and that consistency, like I was saying before, that really helped me. And having people reach out to me, and then like just people I wouldn't have expected, like honestly didn't know that they were friends with me on Facebook or Instagram or whatever. And like, I walk by them and they're like in my office, or, just like I connect with them somehow. And they're like, oh yeah, you're doing that, like that stuff on the side, right? Like the real estate stuff. And, and I'm like, oh yeah, like, and so that's where I've been the most consistent, and really seen the most consistent interactions, and beyond just the social, like the network part of it, but like in person too.
It's crazy how that overlap. It's funny, like the people that I follow, I feel like I'm in their life because I'm not like bought in, right? Like Tyler, for example, I've never met his wife or his kids,
right?
But I feel like I know his wife and his kids.
Yep.
I feel like I've been to his house, right? Swam in his pool, all this stuff.
Yeah.
So
totally,
awesome.
and that's an important key too. I think that with both of us kind of doing our personal rebranding, is there's going to be those personal things that you have to be comfortable with sharing. And, for me, like having that conversation about what do we feel comfortable with, like in my family, like what do you want me to not share versus, right, certain things or moments that, you don't want blasted out there. And that's fine. But just an understanding that, we are people, we have other interests other than real estate and investing and things like that. And that's what makes us unique and builds that trust with people that are watching our content.
Yeah. Yeah. I had the same conversation too, right? Like my kids, how much of them do I want to put online? And I always go back to Gary Vee, right? Like Gary Vee posts more than anybody else out there, but I could not tell you if he had kids. I couldn't tell you anything about his personal life, right? And it's
Right.
like, which path do I want to kind of follow? I've already posted my son Bryce a couple times because he's a champ and he wants to be a YouTuber. So
Well, there you go.
whatever. Yeah, man. Cool.
Yeah.
So let's kind of wrap this up. But I'm curious though, with everything that you're doing now with the subject to and the wholesaling, how are you planning on pulling that back into the multifamily space?
Yeah. So the big reason for getting into the subject to and well, just the sub to community and doing wholesaling is really to create a business that is scalable and something that can operate without me being in the day-to-day operation. So right now I'm heavily involved. I'm doing a lot of the back end work with the partners that are doing the front end work. So like I'm behind the scenes doing a lot of the integrator work where I'm setting up the systems and things like that. They're doing the closing. And right now we're all active, but we all have the same goal that when we get these systems in place and we get a couple of these deals going, we're going to be able to invest more into that business so that we can step outside of it and be more focused on these other bigger projects like the multifamily. And so to me, the wholesale operation is really, it's a cash cow that funds the multifamily, and it's something that is pretty passive once we get it to that point. It's not right now, like I said, I'm pretty heavily involved, but at some point here in the near future, we'll be consistent with the amount of deals coming through, and we can count on that cash coming in to help fund the bigger projects.
Oh, man, that's going to be sick, bro. So you're building the systems right now, right? And honestly, right. I see you as a ClickUp guru, right? So what cool things do you have inside of ClickUp that you could share?
In ClickUp, there's been a lot of things that I've done and across different things. So they have so many options for what you can do in ClickUp. One of the things that I've done in the past when we were focused more on the multifamily acquisitions was you can create a dashboard really easily to show what is your performance over time with how many leads you're getting in, how many properties you're underwriting or doing due diligence walks on, and like you can see your scorecard so that over time you can track and say what your success rate is in getting a deal. That's one of the cooler things that I've done, like as far as like just a nice little KPI tracker for a business owner,
Yeah.
And then there's lots of things with different forms and automations that I've built out where we can track our deals so that we can see from exactly what stage they're in when we get a deal that we're interested in. We've done due diligence checklists, asset management checklists, and kind of the operational piece to really manage the property. So keeping track of calls and any kind of the purchases and construction that's going on, you can keep all of that information within ClickUp with the documents and supporting information, have conversations in there between your coworkers, etc.
Oh man, I've tried to work with ClickUp and I did not get very far, honestly. I mean, those skills are a hot commodity. They have like a marketplace, and some people charge like $500 an hour to set up a ClickUp account. It's insane. Wild, man.
Yeah.
So good for you for setting up basically every functionality or using every functionality inside of ClickUp, man.
It took a while. Don't give up on it. I think, it took me a while to really like understand how to use it the best way. And I think even Brandy, you had him on your podcast for episode 1. He's done a lot of great things, and we collaborated at the beginning. And I think he took some of the ideas and like just made them so much better and really improved on it. And
can you white label a ClickUp account?
I don't know if you can. I think that you can put templates out. So like you can create templates for like a space and things like that, or a task, and you can put those out on a marketplace, or you can share them privately.
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay.
there would be an option to potentially kind
Hell yeah,
of
bro.
market that and get it out there.
That's how you make a name for yourself, build your personal brand. And with subject to or Pace Morby's course growing so big, there's going to be a lot of people that need you. So there you go. There you go. Well, man, my man, I want to open up the floor, man. Is there anything else that you wanted to say that I maybe didn't ask?
Ooh, dude, you covered a lot. And I think the biggest thing for me, and kind of leading into what we were talking about, the podcast and the mindset and things like that, is, how do we, like me and you, through our podcast and other outlets, like how do we help people realize what the next step is for them? And whether that is being active or being passive, an investor, whatever it is, there's lots of ways that you can move yourself forward. And I think that's the biggest thing for me, is like, how do we do that? And by doing it ourselves, I can't remember what Brandy's quote was during your podcast, but like, living the life, maybe you remember, living the life right now, it gives approval to those around you to live the life that they want. Or do you remember what that was?
I can't remember. That's one of his daily affirmations, and it's
I
freaking
know.
deep, right? But it's basically saying how you live gives the people around the permission to live the same, right?
Yeah.
So how you excel gives the permission to the people around you to also excel. It's deep, man.
Yes.
That was super deep.
I heard that, and like, I was just pulling into the parking lot at work, and I like stopped, and I was just like, whoa. And I texted Brandy, and I was like, dude, awesome episode. Like, I'm not even halfway through, but like, I texted him and just told him like how great that line was. It was amazing. And I think if we can all kind of help each other move into that position to where we don't have those fears and that self-doubt, then we're just, all of us in this community and people that follow us are going to be in a way better position.
Hell yeah, bro. So where can the people find you? What's the best way to reach you?
So I'm really focused on growing my YouTube account right now. And everything is pretty much Robert J _86.
Okay. Awesome.
But YouTube and Instagram are the biggest things. YouTube is going to be where I start putting out more content. Instagram is kind of my current main point of content that goes out.
Yeah, we'll have to collab on that too, because I am trying to really dive back into the YouTube game as well. But all your information, I'll drop them in the description. Robert, man, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate you. I think this was a great episode. So much value, bro. You're killing the game. Thank you.
Thanks, man. I appreciate you coming on, and look forward to when you can come on to mine.
Hell yeah, bro. Hell yeah. Cool. Yeah. Well, I'm Trae Jacobs. This is Robert Johnson. We out of here. See ya.